How do we know what we know about turfgrass science? Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology. My name is TravisShaddox, coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky. It is May 6th, 2025. We're going to have some fun tonight. If you're new to the channel, this channel explores the epistemological questions about turfgrass science. How do we know what we know about turfgrass science? We usually explore scientific literature. Sometimes we go over and help educate the general audience by using other person's videos. And sometimes we critique those and use that as an educational opportunity. And some people like that. Tonight, we're going to do a little something different. We're going to be going over artificial intelligence, and we're going to be asking some artificial intelligence questions. Some of the questions we know the answer to, some of the questions we don't know the answer to, and other questions there is no answer to it. We will see what it says. But I went and attended an AI seminar, I don't know, a week or two ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. And I've engaged and interacted with AI before, and I've often been impressed with some of the replies it comes back with, but I'm also quite concerned because a lot of the material that comes back to me as a turfgrass soil scientist is complete BS. It's just a BS machine. BS generator is really what it is, but it does it in a very, very compelling and convincing way. But I was wondering, because I specialize in this area, soil and turfgrass, and I think to the average person who might ask it a question, say ChatGPT a question about some detail of their lawn or golf fairway or sport turf or whatever it might be, they might be convinced by the reply, because admittedly it's very convincing. But imagine you're a specialist in playing the piano or carpentry or firearms or whatever the case is. And let's say you're really, really, really good at that. If you were to ask ChatGPT or AI a detailed question, it might seem convincing to me because I'm not a specialist in any of those areas. But to you, who's a specialist in, taking apart a carburetor, you're going to recognize pretty quickly that it's not completely accurate. And in some cases, it just completely hallucinates. And that's very concerning to me as a soil scientist, because when I see information come back, I'm like, well, some of that's correct. Some of it's not correct. But how would the average person know? So the intent or the objective of today is just to kind of go through AI, ChatGPT, and really just have some fun. Just goof around and have a little bit of fun with it. There's just some fun questions I'm going to ask it. Some other more scientific, detailed questions I'm going to ask it. And we're going to see what happens. Okay, some of the questions I have asked it before. Others I have no idea what it's going to say. So we're just going to throw it out there and have fun. If you have a question that you would like for me to ask it live, put it in the chat. And for members who are a member of the channel, you can go to the post that I just posted 5 minutes ago and read the members only post, and it'll help me. I see Ashanti has probably already read the post. But if you're a member, go read the post, and it'll help me keep track of, the members. But I will do my best to insert any questions that are particularly relevant or interesting into the ChatGPT system live tonight. So let me just make sure this is all working. Andrew Burris says this. Good evening, everyone. This is a very timely subject. Okay. Thanks, Andrew. I don't know what you mean by that, but yeah, I mean, AI is becoming more and more common. It's getting better and better at what it does. And it can be, and I want to make sure this is clear from the beginning, I do use AI for some things, and it can be extremely useful and very productive. It can be used, but I would not go to it for truth. Let me just say that from the beginning. If you want a detailed, truthful response, I would not go to ChatGPT or any AI system. You can go to site.ai or NotebookLM or whatever. They're all very convincing, and I haven't found one yet that is consistently as accurate as a specialist in the area would be, a soil scientist or a turf scientist, or in your world, maybe it's, teaching sixth graders or whatever it is, geology or whatever. If you're a specialist in that, you're going to recognize real quick that ChatGPT and other AI systems are not that accurate. It's called hallucinating. I didn't know this, but in the world of AI, apparently they use the phrase hallucinating. they hallucinate. It thinks it's correct, and it's just completely coming up with stuff. I don't know where it comes up with this stuff from, but it's not accurate. Okay, so let me do my best to see if there's any questions before I start about anything I want to put in there. Yeah. Oh, Ashanti says, would I be interested in contributing to building a Turfgrass AI? The average homeowner will eventually use it like Google. That's not an offer, but I'm curious. Yeah, I'd be interested. I mean, I do in an indirect way, and in some cases a direct way, already contribute to AI, because when you search AI, especially if you search things like NotebookLM or site.ai, where you insert the manuscripts into the system and then ask it questions, it's going to pull from research that I've published. So in cases of, say, granular iron or ball roll speed on putting greens with wetting agents or cost of nitrogen fertilizers, it's very likely going to pull data or information that I've already published. So in that way, I already contribute. But if you're asking me something else, like more of an off-the-line question separate from this, then yeah, just give me a buzz. Give me a buzz, Ashanti, and we can talk about it. Okay. All right, let's get started. What I'm going to do, I already have the questions typed out in Word, and I'm just going to copy and paste them. The first question I'm going to ask it is, if I can get it up here, is it going to work or not? There it is. Okay. Is, which lawn care YouTube channel produces the most misinformation? So you can see right from the beginning, I'm wanting to have some fun with this. I'm not going to it necessarily for all science today. Okay. We're going to have a little fun. Okay. Which one produces the most misinformation? Let's see what it says. It says, it's searching. Identifying the lawn care YouTube channel that disseminates the most misinformation is challenging, as it largely depends on individual experiences and perspectives. However, the discussion within lawn care communities have highlighted certain creators whose content has raised concerns. Okay, here we go. Number 1, Yard Bra. One channel that has been notably criticized is Yard Bra. Quote, terrible and dangerously incorrect information by one YouTuber. Additionally, it's been revealed that the individual behind the channel has a criminal history, which has further impacted his credibility within the community. Whoa. Okay. So ChatGPT is pretty much on target on that one. Okay. So we'll give it a check box in the plus column for accuracy on that first question. Let's see what the next part says. Product endorsements and misinformation beyond specific channels. A broader concern in the lawn care community space is the promotion of products without thorough testing. That's probably accurate. I don't know. Recommendations for reliable information. For those seeking trustworthy lawn care advice, okay, here we go. Several channels are frequently recommended by enthusiasts. This is going off of a Reddit, I guess, 2002 Reddit. Turf Mechanic, praised for not promoting products aggressively and providing detailed explanation. I haven't watched all his videos, but you guys know I love watching some of his videos. He provides some of the best misinformation on YouTube. It is really, really impressive. And to me, as a scientist and a content creator and an extension specialist, very, very informative and fascinating to me, because he does provide good information, like all YouTube channels. We're going to provide some accuracy. I mean, a blind squirrel is going to find a nut one way or the other. A broken clock's going to be right twice a day. So there is information on there that is accurate. I'm not going to say everything he's saying is inaccurate, but some of it is great, great misinformation. He's been spotlighted on the Tinfoil Turfgrass episodes at least twice. So that's, I would say, a strike on trustworthiness. But I mean, some of the information, again, not all the information he provides is inaccurate, but some of it is. Ryan Knorr, known for educational content, though some users have noted a shift towards product promotion. So I don't know Ryan. I've watched some of his videos. I would probably agree with that. Ryan seems to provide pretty accurate information. It seemed like a long time ago, before I even got into YouTube, I didn't know all the movers and shakers. And I've gone back and watched some of the videos in the past. It seems like early on he was a little bit more. He wasn't quite in line with some of the evidence and proper management practices as he is now. But it does seem like now he's pretty good and pretty in line with proper management practices and provides good information nowadays. Pest and Lawn Ginja, I don't know how to pronounce that. These are people who are listed as credible sources. Now he's listed the Pest and Lawn Ginja. He and the members have seen this sheet. I'm not gonna. It's probably blurred out on the thing. He's going to be on Tinfoil Turfgrass in probably another 3 or 4 weeks. I have a note here for the last probably 2 months of a request to go over one of his videos. I've watched some of his stuff. Some of it is absolutely horrendous, awful misinformation, misdiagnosis of weed species, poor recommendations for controlling of certain weeds and so forth. Again, he's going to provide good information in many regards, but not all the information there is accurate. That's for sure. So I would say ChatGPT definitely did well when it comes to disinformation with yard bra. But when it comes to correct information, I'd say yes on Ryan Knorr, but the other two, Turf Mechanic and Peskinja, or whatever that is highly questionable to say the least. So that's interesting. Okay, let's go to the next question. I got a whole bunch to do tonight, just like crazy questions to go through. Okay, the next question is, what is the critical soil malic 3 sulfur concentration for turf grass? Now, there is really no publications on malic 3 critical malic 3 sulfur concentrations for turf grasses. There is none that I'm aware of. The only one that has been written but not yet published is the one that I've done with a colleague of mine or a peer of mine. We're co-authoring this paper, and it's about to be submitted for publication. It's all completed. It's going through the last final edits, and then we're going to submit it. So as far as I know, there isn't any. So we have to pull data from other crops, and let's see what ChatGPT says. Sulfur and mobile in the soil. There is no universally established critical soil malic 3 sulfur concentration specifically for turf grass. So that's true. There is no universally established critical soil malic. So it's correct about that. There is none. We know that's the case. There is none. It doesn't say anything about. It just talks about sulfur is mobile in the soil. Doesn't say anything about the concentrations. It does say in many regions sulfur is applied as a byproduct, as ammonium sulfate, gypsum, or other fertilization. This is true. This is another reason why it's generally, under normal fertility programs, sulfur is generally not deficient because you're applying it whether you realize it or not in many cases. And where atmospheric sulfur deposition is low, deficiency risk may increase. And that's exactly what I've gone over on the channel as well. So that part is true. Malic 3 is not well calibrated for sulfur. Check this out. This is absolutely correct. Malic 3 was developed primarily to extract PK, calcium, magnesium, and some micronutrients. If it extracts some sulfate sulfur, but results don't correlate consistently with turfgrass growth responses. That is absolutely true. Even on my paper that we're going to hopefully get published very soon, when I say very soon, like by the end of the year, it's correlated very well in 2 seasons and then did not correlate very well in 2 other seasons. But that's going to be the case with a lot of soil extracts. It doesn't matter what the extract is. Sometimes it's going to correlate very well, and other times it's not, primarily because the soil nutrient concentrations of whatever, potassium, phosphorus, whatever, is going to change slightly, and the turfgrass need for that nutrient is going to change slightly from season to season. So the critical level is also going to change from season to season, and if it does, then the correlation might not be as strong from season to season. So it's dead on that one. So give it a home run on that one. Let's see what it says research context. Most agronomic references suggest plant tissue testing is more reliable. I did find that plant tissue testing for sulfur was a little stronger correlated than the soil malic 3 sulfur in my paper. The R squared was a little tighter, a little higher on tissue. So again, that's pretty good. If a guideline is cited, as often comes to field crops, which again is what we would do when we don't have good data in turf, and it says less than 15 parts per million malic 3 sulfur might be considered low in coarse textured soil. However, no peer-reviewed turfgrass specific critical level exists. Look at that. Man, that is dead on. That could not have been written more accurately. That is definitely correct. I'm shocked. That's really, really good. Practical recommendations: malic 3 sulfur less than 10 to 15 parts per million on a sand-based root zone or sulfur fertilization is minimal. Consider a light sulfur application of 0.25 to 0.5 pounds of sulfur per 1,000 square feet. They mean sulfate sulfur, not elemental sulfur, just for those listening. That is definitely good. I would say that what it's going to end up being, because this is going to be the only paper I'm aware of that's going to be on this topic of correlation and calibration on sulfate sulfur, it's going to end up being single digits, like 5, 6, 7 parts per million malic 3 sulfur at 6 inches. It's going to be the critical limit. So what I'm going to, what generally just in ballpark BMP ranges, we're going to say anything in single digits at 6 inches on a malic 3 soil test of sulfur, anything in single digits, you probably want to consider applying sulfate sulfur. If you already are applying sulfate sulfur and you're still in the single digits, then you might want to apply a little bit more sulfate sulfur. If you're in the double digits sulfate sulfur, the chances are extremely low that you would ever see a benefit to applying it. That's what it's going to end up being. Sorry, I'm going to have to keep going. But that is very impressive. That was very, very good on that particular question. I'm actually shocked that it was that accurate. So, okay, now next question. Another fun question here. I live in Bradenton, Florida. Can I apply phosphorus to my lawn? For those of you who might not have watched, I did a video a year ago, whenever it was, about the lawn care nut who visually recording himself applying and recommending to apply phosphorus on Florida lawns in Bradenton, Florida. That you can't do that. There's a law, and I showed the law on the channel. You cannot apply phosphorus in Bradenton, Florida on home lawns, period, unless you actually have a soil test that has confirmed that it is deficient, or a tissue test that is deficient in phosphorus, and you submitted that tissue test to the authority in that location, and they confirm it, okay, you're low in phosphorus, then you can apply it. Now, I did call that authority, talk to him personally, and he's never received a single sample that would warrant the application of phosphorus in over 10 years. So you can apply phosphorus in Bradenton, Florida if you're a homeowner. Full stop. Okay? Let's see what ChatGPT says. I can't help with that. I recommend checking with your local extension office of the Florida Department of Agriculture for guidance on phosphorus application rules in Bradenton, Florida. So it can't help with that. That's the answer. Okay? I'm a little bit disappointed in that, because that information is available in the codes and ordinances and laws in that location. That's all available online, but ChatGPT says it cannot help with that. So strike out on that one. Okay, next question. Pesticides are regulated by FIFRA. Why are fertilizers not regulated? I've often wondered that. Like, there's not a whole lot of debate or argument with pesticide applications in terms of their efficacy. There's debates on, environmental risk and all these other things. But when you buy a pesticide, you're required to apply that according to the label. A maximum dose per application, maximum dose per year, time of year, application, all these things. The wind speed, temperature inversions, all these things are on those labels, and you're required to follow those to a T. But in fertilizers, we don't really have that. It's like every man for themselves until here recently, the last 20 years or so, it's been changing with state and local ordinances. We're creating a quagmire in trying to keep up with this mess. Whereas with pesticides, it's federal. It's a federal restriction and law on that. So let's see what ChatGPT says. Fertilizers are not regulated under FIFRA. Well, I know that, because FIFRA was specifically enacted to regulate substance intended for prevent, destroy, repel, or mitigate pests. Okay. Why pesticides are regulated? Well, I know that. Why fertilizers are not regulated? Fertilizers are intended to promote plant growth, not control pests. They do not meet FIFRA's definition of a pesticide. Well, I guess I asked the question wrong. So they fall outside the jurisdiction. How fertilizers are regulated. States primarily regulate fertilizer use, formulation, and labeling through the Department of Agriculture. Environmental issues related to fertilizers may fall under Clean Water Act or the state or local fertilizer ordinance as well. Okay. Well, that's what I know. I'm just wondering why we don't have, if we control pesticides with a federal ordinance or law, it seems like the issues we have with fertilizers might have been avoided if we also included fertilizers. So either both of them or none of them, basically, is what I would go for, but that's all good. Basically, can't answer that. So maybe I worded the question incorrectly. Next question. We have a tremendous amount to go to, so I got to move quickly. Next question. Let's see what it says here. If you consider cost and longevity of response, what is the least expensive nitrogen fertilizer for turf grass? Well, now we know the answer to this question, okay? There is no debate, okay? We can debate opinion if you want to, okay? We can debate religion and politics till we're blue in the face. But facts are facts, and there's published information on this. The least expensive nitrogen source, whether you consider it by cost or whether you consider it by longevity, is urea, 4600 urea on turf grass. Okay. It's the last week, this week, and next week. It's always going to be the least expensive. If you want to go to slow release only, then that's fine if that's what you want to do. But that's actually the next question. What is the least expensive slow release? And we're going to figure that out, what it says. Let's see what ChatGPT says about that question. When evaluating nitrogen fertilizers for turfgrass in terms of cost per pound of nitrogen, good, and longevity of response, the least expensive option is typically urea. See? It can be correct. Usually the lowest cost per pound of actual nitrogen, depending on the market. Highly concentrated. Okay, longevity, quick release provides rapid turfgrass response. Short residual lasts about 2 to 4 weeks. Now, when they say residual, they're talking about maybe as urea or nitrogen in the soil. But when you measure turfgrass response to that nitrogen, it's usually much, much longer than 2 to 4 weeks. Drawbacks, high burn potential, that's true relative to slow release, that's true. More leaching potential, that's true relative to slow release. And no slow release benefits unless coated. So all that's true, yeah. Honorable mentions, ammonium sulfate's number 2. Check that out. So urea's number 1, ammonium sulfate's number 2. And then they have polymer coats and slow release. I'm going to ask about that in a second. Bottom line, if cost per pound of nitrogen is your primary concern, plain urea is the least expensive nitrogen fertilizer for turfgrass. However, if you value longevity and reduce leaching, a coating or slow release formulation may offer better cost per unit of turf response over time. That is not true. The better cost per unit of turf response, which we measured in longevity and area under the curve, which is longevity and magnitude, in both cases, urea was, again, the least expensive source, no matter how you sliced up the cost. Cost per pound of N, cost per turfgrass response longevity, or cost per turfgrass longevity and magnitude of response. It was always urea. So it missed the last part here, but the rest of it was pretty solid. Yeah, I'm impressed. It's not too bad, but the last part there is not accurate. Let's continue. And those are all published information. Next question. If you consider, that is the one I asked. Whoops. Oh, no. If you consider cost and longevity response, what is the least expensive slow release nitrogen fertilizer for turfgrass? Okay, so slow release has also been published, and that involves things like methylene urea, talking about myself, polymer-coated urea, sulfur-coated urea, IBDU, natural organics, these things, all these various nitrogen sources, slow release. And we've measured that. And it is not even close. It's sulfur-coated urea. Now, if you happen to be in a location where sulfur-coated urea, it happens to be more expensive than a polymer-coated urea, then it's going to be the polymer-coated urea is going to be least expensive. It's going to be whatever slow-release source is the least expensive per pound of N. Okay, so if you're getting a sulfur coat at I don't know how you do this nowadays, but like a 3800, it's a really low nitrogen analysis, and you have a polymer coat that's at a 4400, and you compare that on cost per pound of N, it might be the polymer coat is the least expensive than the sulfur coat. But XCU, which is a 4300, is almost always the least expensive slow release nitrogen source. And it's not even a remote second. Second's way second from second. Okay, it's always sulfur coated urea. The ChatGPT says if you consider both cost and longevity, it's polymer coated urea. And here it says ESN. This is a polymer coat, but then it says XCU. So this is even hallucinating here because XCU is not a polymer-coated urea. That's a sulfur-coated urea. And ESN is a polymer-coated urea. So it's somehow hallucinating there because XCU is the answer. The other ones are inaccurate. I'm not sure what it's going for there, but it has a little chart here, it has little dollar signs. PC polymer coats it has listed as about the same. It has $2 signs next to polymer coat and $2 signs next to sulfur coat. That's not even close. You see, and it has XCU under polymer coat, not under sulfur coat. So it's confused. It's hallucinating there. Yeah. So polymer coat would be things like duration, polyon, surf coat, turf coat. There's a black one called I can't remember, NutriCoat, or I can't remember what it's called now. There's all sorts of polymer coats, but the least expensive is XCU, sulfur coat. But if you say, well, Travis, I'm getting sulfur coated urea or XCU for $1,100 a ton, and polymer coated urea I'm getting for $1,000 a ton, well, then the polymer coat's the least expensive. If you happen to have that difference in cost comparison, depending on how it hit the FIFO, it might actually fall that way. Okay. I would like to go into this further, but I got to keep moving because I got so much to get to. And I'm going to get to all the questions, or at least all the questions I think the members ask. I'm going to get to your questions. I have them on this sheet here, so I'm not going to miss them. Next question. What is the average salary of a sports field manager, or sports turf or sports field manager? As of April 2025, the average annual salary of a sports field manager in the United States is approximately $72,000, equating to about $34 per hour. However, since salaries can vary based upon factors such as location, experience, and specific level of sports managed, it might vary. So sports turf, it has sports turf and sports field separated out, but it looks like it's around $70,000 for a sports field manager, $71,000 for a certified sports field manager. I don't know the answer to that question, so that's the reason I put it on there, because I don't know the answer. That sounds, I guess, in the ballpark to me. In other words, it's not 700,000. It's not completely hallucinating. 70,000 seems like it's in the ballpark. Salaries can differ significantly by location. New York City, a sports turf manager earns around 82,000 in New York City. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Next question. What is the average salary of a golf course superintendent? ChatGPT says, as of 2025, the average annual salary of a golf course superintendent in the United States is approximately $110,000. This figure represents 12.6% increase from 2021, indicating a positive trend in compensation for professionals in this field. Salary by experience and certification, it kind of goes through, if you've had 2 to 4 years, it's 62,000, 5 to 8 years, it's 63,000, 8+ years, it's 65,000. It kind of keeps going up. And then a certified superintendent is a certified is 128,000. So the average is 110,000. The certified superintendent is around 130,000. And of course, there's regional variations, and it kind of goes through Kentucky. The average salary in Kentucky is 76. So we're a little bit lower. Wow, that's low. So it's pulling this from salary.com. And again, I don't know if that's accurate or not. New Jersey's 135,000. In California, salaries average from around 70,000, reflecting the state's higher cost of living. I don't know what that means. Here's a difference in salary based upon education. If you have a high school degree and your superintendent, average 75. Some college averages 87. 1-year certificate averages 94. 2-year certificate averages 107. An associate's degree averages 103. A bachelor's degree averages 116. That's interesting too. They break it out by education level. So you can see the ROI on your education if you have no college versus a bachelor's degree is about $35,000 more per year on average if you have a high school diploma and you're a superintendent compared to a bachelor's degree and you're a superintendent. That's interesting. Again, I don't know the answer to that question, so I thought I'd ask it. Now, I know the answer to this question. Is there any benefit to applying granular iron to my lawn? Now, we know the answer is almost zero. There's almost a 0% chance that you would ever see a benefit to applying granular iron to your lawn, any turf grass. Why? Because one, if it's in a form like iron sucrate or iron oxide in the granular fertilizer already, then it's not even soluble. It's not going to be soluble once it hits the soil. Okay, it's an oxide. It's rust when you put it out. Okay, but even if it's not oxide, if it's a sulfate, it's going to solubilize in the solution, in the soil solution, and then it's going to oxidize within about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the pH of the soil. It's going to oxidize, and about a little more than 95% of it is going to be unavailable and turn into rust, basically, in about 10 to 20 minutes, something like that. Okay, and we've done turf grass response studies with granular iron, and we've done it with foliar iron, seen a response with foliar iron, but granular iron, never. We've never seen one. Foliar iron, yes. Granular iron, no. We've tested it and tested it and tested it. We're pretty confident with that. The answer is 99.99% of the time, no, there is no benefit. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Oops. Yes, applying granular iron to your lawn can provide benefits, but its effectiveness depends on soil conditions, turf grass species, and your goals. Here's a breakdown. So complete BS, okay? Complete hallucination on granular iron. Benefits of granular iron: greening effect, low growth stimulation, supplemental nutrient, and aesthetic improvement. These are all benefits to granular iron. Limitations: slow response, variable availability, leaching, runoff. Leaching of iron? Oh my God. Temporary effect. When granular iron is most effective when soil tests show low iron availability, don't use a soil test for an iron, okay? Don't do that. Again, it's hallucinating. pH greater than 7, especially in calcareous or sandy soils. That can be true, especially with foliar iron, but granular iron is going to be immediately unavailable. It's going to oxidize out so fast. It'll oxidize out. To give you an idea, if you start from your tee box and let's say for some reason you're push spreading it. I don't know why you'd push spread it, but let's say you push spread fertilizer from your tee box to the green on a par 5, okay? And let's assume there was water being applied directly behind you as you're walking. By the time you get to that green, the iron you put out back on the tee box is already oxidized. That's how fast it oxidizes out. And you'll see that whether it's on the soil surface or if it stays on the leaf surface, you'll see these little black dots on the leaf surfaces all over your turf where that iron solubilized with the water, and the dissolved oxygen in that water reacted with the iron and formed iron oxide. Yeah. So complete hallucination. This is completely wrong. So again, I'm just pointing out that sometimes it's correct. I pointed out it was dead on the sulfur, completely swing and a miss on iron. Let's see what it says on the next question. What is the greatest challenge facing lawn care operators? Now, any question about labor, about business models, business design, or developing business, data and keeping track of anything like that would be fine. I'm A-okay with primarily labor, but how do you acquire more market share? How do you market yourself? How do you keep track of the business? I mean, how do you go from agriculture to business? All those things it's an open-ended question, but it needs to be something in that ballpark. Okay. It can't be, President Trump's horrible and it can't be anything like that. The greatest challenge facing lawn care operators today is increasing pressure to balance performance with environmental, regulatory, and customer expectations, all while maintaining profitability. That sounds very compelling. It's just a big fat nothing sandwich, though. Okay, well, environmental, regulatory, and customer expectation, that's been going on since the beginning of lawn care. Like, how is that the most challenging lawn care, most challenging issue for lawn care people? Regulatory's been around forever. Environment's been around forever. Customer expectations is exactly why we exist. That seems to be, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's inaccurate. I'm just saying that it's a BS generator. It creates something very compelling, but it doesn't mean anything. Core challenges, regulations, environmental concerns, misinformation, pseudoscience, and misleading marketing. Okay. Again, I don't think it's the biggest issue. Customer expectations. I mean, customer expectations are always the top priority. I mean, we got to meet our expectations. That's true. Labor shortages. Here we go. So third or fourth on the list, labor shortages, difficulty finding and retaining skilled labor. There you go. So, okay. So it's in there. Cost volatility. What that means is being able to predict the cost of goods coming in. So you can forecast out what you should be charging. So, okay. It's not bad. I mean, it's in there. Not bad at all. What it boils down to, lawn care operators are being asked to do more with less. That's true. They must produce visually impressive weed-free turf while reducing environmental impact, meeting rising customer expectation, navigating misinformation, complying with complex changing regulations, and managing costs and labor shortage. Okay, so I'll give it a passing grade on that. It got it in there, I think. And again, there's no right or wrong answer, but I was just curious what it would say. Next question. Now we know the answer to this question. What is soil buffer pH? Okay, and I may not have gone over that in great detail in the channel, but soil buffer pH, if you measure pH normally on a soil test, what you're measuring is what's referred to as active acidity. The acidity, the activity of hydrogen ions essentially in the soil solution. Buffer pH is the reserve acidity. So the acidity that's in the solution, but also the acidity that's on the exchange sites or that can be exchanged in the soil. So it gives you an idea as to how much or what pH the soil's buffered to. Okay, let's see what it says. Soil buffer pH is a laboratory measurement that estimates the amount of lime needed to raise soil pH to a desired level, usually around 6 to 6.5. That is true. We use buffer pH to recommend the amount of lime. So that is definitely true. It's not really a definition, but that is what we use it for. Buffer pH, okay, here it is right here. Buffer pH, a measure of the reserve acidity, the amount of acidity held on cation exchange sites in the soil. It reflects how resistant the soil is to, there you go. Perfect. The soil is to a change in pH, and the soil pH is a measure of the active acidity, the concentration of hydrogen ions in the soil solution. So look at that, dead on. 100% accurate. So it's right on. Why buffer pH matters. Two soils may have the same soil pH, but one may require more lime to raise the pH due to a higher buffer capacity. There you go. Buffer pH is used to calculate the lime requirement, whereas soil pH alone is not sufficient for that purpose. So 100% accurate on that. Dead on describing what buffer pH is. Next question. How do golf courses reduce water use by 45% by 2040? Now, that's one of the, actually, Dr. Serena was on the channel and he mentioned that. That's one of the objectives and goals, something to look forward to, something to strive for, in other words. Are they going to hit that goal? Well, we'll see. But we're something to shoot for. We have a target on the wall, in other words. We're not flying blind. Let's see what ChatGPT says. To achieve a 45% reduction in water use by 2040, golf courses are implementing a multifaceted approach that combines technology advancements, agronomic practices, and stakeholder engagement. This initiative is significantly supported by the USGA through its 15-year, $30 million commitment known as 15-30-45 campaign. Oh, they're getting that from golf.com. They may have pulled this whole thing from golf.com. Okay, key strategies: optimize irrigation systems, adopting drought-tolerant turf grasses. This is highly associated. Adopted drought-tolerant turf grass is very well associated, not in the literature, in data that hasn't been published, but let's hope it does sometime soon. That is very well correlated with reductions in water use using drought-tolerant turf grasses. Reduced irrigated turf. This is also associated with using less water, reducing irrigated turf areas. That's true. Enhancing soil health. I'm unaware of any evidence to support that. Managing golfer expectations. Well, I'm not aware of any evidence, but that is an intangible issue. If we can manage it, like you go over to links courses in Europe, they don't have the same expectations as golfers here in the United States do, and they have fewer inputs over there. So it's a matter of what the golfers expect in your location. And here in the United States, we have higher expectations. And so we end up using more water. I think there's probably some truth to that. Utilizing alternative water sources. We're already doing that. In many locations, that's a major source of water use is reclaimed water. And implementing advanced technologies. I'm not aware of any of that. I know there's some data, again, hasn't been published, where we're using advanced technologies and we see an association with more water usage. So you never really know. I would say the data is not very strong on that issue. Nor is there cause, but there is an association. So we'll see. Interesting answer that they have here. It's probably pulled from like blog posts or something. They have the little, they're pulling this from blog posts. So there's no assurance that it's accurate because they're pulling it just from other blogs and other posts online. But that's the answer it gave. I would say in general, it's not too far off. It's in the ballpark. Oops, I got to do this. There you go. Okay, next question. Now, I think we're going to get into some of the member questions here, okay? Yeah, Joe, I'll ask that question. Okay, next question. I heard my lawn should be irrigated deep and infrequent rather than light and frequent. Are there any scientific articles supporting that claim? Now, we have gone over 2 articles in St. Augustine Grass that clearly refuted that claim. We have not yet gone over the articles that support that claim, but I can tell you right now, there are articles that will support the use of deep and infrequent water regimes compared to light and infrequent water regimes when it comes to long-term sustainability, turfgrass quality, deeper rooting. There are papers that support that. I will tell you that. Let's see what it says. Yes, there is a substantial scientific evidence supporting the practice of deep and infrequent irrigation for lawns. This method encourages deeper rooting, enhances drought resistance, and improves overall turf health. This is true under some conditions, particularly on cool season grasses. You're going to find that in the cool season grass literature quite a bit. Okay, so it is correct on that. However, like I said, we're going through water now. Like I've said, it's not always the case. You can't always say, yes, it's always deep and infrequent no matter what, because there is some literature that indicates the exact opposite. Okay, so you got to understand the turf you're working with, the soil you're working with, the time of year, the expectations, what ET are you living through, all these things, okay? But it does say there is, and it provides some scientific support here. Benefits of deep and infrequent watering, enhanced root development, improved drought tolerance. Again, it doesn't cite scientific articles. It just does like blog posts, which I can just write anything on my own blog and it might pull it from that. So I wouldn't go by any of this, but you can come down here and then just ask it, can you provide any scientific papers to support that? And ChatGPT will provide those. Sometimes it's accurate. I'll say this right now. Sometimes it'll always provide scientific articles. Sometimes the scientific articles are completely made up, literally just made up out of thin air. And other times it's dead on. You can actually pull the article up and go read it. I've tried that, and I'd say probably 1 or 2 times out of 10, it'll just make up an article out of thin air. It'll just hallucinate. And you go and try to pull the article up, and there's nothing there. It says error. There's nothing there. There's not even a website there that even it used. So, and nor is there a title. I search the title, and nothing comes up on any known source. So sometimes I would say 10 to 20% of the time, it just completely hallucinates on citations. But it will always give you a scientific article. All right, let's have another fun question here. I get this comment a lot. Well, you should get rid of turf grass and just plant trees all the time. Just trees are the solution to all problems. And you get rid of turf grass. Let's see what ChatGPT says about this question. How many deaths are caused by trees each year in the United States? Now, I know you can go pull this up. There was actually data on this. It's anywhere, it varies, but it's anywhere between like 85 and 120-ish, something like that, deaths in the United States are caused by falling trees actually falling on somebody. But when you factor in chainsaw accidents and who knows, falling out of trees, and I mean, there's all sorts of other issues that can come up with trees, but falling on people, it's around 100 and average around 100 a year. Let's see what ChatGPT says. The number of deaths caused by falling trees in the United States each year is not precisely documented. That's not necessarily true. There is some citations for that, but available data suggests that such incidents results in approximately 100 to 100 fatalities annually. 100 to 150 people die each year from trees falling on them. How many people die each year from turf grass? Give me a freaking break. Estimated annual fatalities from falling trees, and it gives you 2020 to 2023. It gives you all this information here. You can go look it up. Journal estimates the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, has reported that over 100 people are killed by trees each year in the United States. I'm not saying go remove trees. I'm not saying go chop down trees and get rid of them. So stop telling me to get rid of my turf grass and start planting trees. I'm not saying the opposite. I can come up with very, very good reasons to grow trees. Okay? And I can come up with very good reasons to remove trees. So let's get the right plant in the right place and stop pointing the finger at everybody and get a good, healthy landscape. Some of it's going to be turf grass. Some of it's going to be trees. Some of it's going to be ornamental plants. Some of it might be even xeriscape, depending on you. You might have rocks and cactus out there, depending on where you live in the United States. But calm down about this trees. I'm okay with trees, but trees kill people. Okay? It's the way it is. Okay? It's not my opinion. It's fact. Now let's ask this question. See what it says here. Which results in more deaths, turf grass or trees? Trees result in, and this is what ChatGPT says, trees result in more documented deaths than turf grass in the United States by a significant margin. I'll see what it says about turf. What is it going to say about turf? You slipped and fell on sod or something? Estimated fatalities of 100 to 150 deaths annually in the United States from trees. Primary cause are trees falling, occupational accidents during tree removal or pruning, and vehicle collisions with roadside trees. Those are the reasons. Those are how trees result in human deaths. Okay? Examples. In 2021, Weather Channel analysis highlighted the underreported danger of falling trees during severe weather events. Turf grass related deaths, estimated fatalities, negligible or unreported. Possible but extremely rare scenarios. Heat stroke or cardiac events while mowing or working on lawns. You could say the same thing about working on trees. You could have a heat stroke or cardiac event while working on a tree. Slipper falls on wet turf. True, you could fall off a tree. Pesticide exposure incidents rare or unusually non-fatal with modern safety standards. You could say the same thing about trees. There are no consistent or credible sources attributing a measurable number of annual deaths directly to turf grass. Turf is generally considered benign or beneficial in terms of public safety. Thank you, ChatGPT. And I wouldn't look that up, by the way. You can actually go pull the data up from, I forget where I pulled it up from. You can pull the data up. The U.S. keeps track of that stuff. Next question. How long will iron sulfate remain soluble once applied to soil? Now, we know the answer to that. I already gave it earlier in the show. Once applied to a soil, as long as the soil is moist, as long as there's moisture there, it's going to last about 10, 15, 20 minutes, iron sulfate. If it's a high pH, it might be a little faster. If it's a low pH, it might be a little slower, but it's around 10 to 20 minutes, something like that. Let's see what ChatGPT says. ChatGPT says, once applied to soil, iron sulfate remains soluble only briefly, typically hours to a few days, before it rapidly undergoes precipitation or oxidation depending on soil conditions. So right here, it conflicts with itself. It says iron sulfate remains soluble only briefly, hours, and I can tell you it's probably around 20 minutes. And the only reason I can't say it's 20 minutes because the assay, you have to do it so fast to get it. It takes a little time to actually conduct the assay. And I tried to do it less than an hour when I was doing that work years ago. I can't do it less than an hour because there's so much stuff going on. You can't get all the stuff going. You need like 10 people to get it in less, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You need a lot of things going on. So it's probably like 10 to 20 minutes. And it says right here, it remains soluble only briefly. But prior to this, it said, yes, granular iron's useful for turf grass. Deeper greening. But then the next question you ask it, no, it's going to be insoluble. So this is what I mean. You cannot rely upon AI for truth. You can rely upon AI for a few more things. I'm going to show you how I'll use AI in a few minutes. There are some good things you can pull from AI and useful tools that you can use from AI. But I wouldn't go to it for truth like this. But it is true. I mean, this is true in this particular area, that it does oxidize very rapidly. Very rapidly. And it kind of goes through some of the chemical fate of iron sulfate and oxidation, presence of OT and all, yeah. Quickly oxidizes to Fe3. Yeah. So in the ballpark, it's in the ballpark. Yeah. And it says right here, here you go. Iron sulfate is best used as a foliar spray, not soil applied, to avoid rapid loss of availability. And just earlier it said, yes, you can use granular iron. And now it's saying it's better to use as a foliar spray. Don't use it as a soil applied iron. It's crazy. And it says right here, if soil application is necessary, benefits will likely be short-term cosmetic greening in acid soils. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Okay. That's what it says about iron. Okay, next question. I live in Lexington, Kentucky. Where is the cheapest place to buy urea fertilizer for my lawn? I get a question sometimes or comment like, I can't find urea. I can't find ammonium sulfate near me. There may not be any urea or ammonium sulfate near you, but ChatGPT is definitely an area where you can actually go to and ask and start, or go to Google and ask and see. But ChatGPT is not too bad, actually. It says, if you're looking to purchase urea fertilizer for your lawn in Kentucky, here are some local and online options to consider. And it says, Ellington Agway, Seven Springs Farm Supply, Tampa Soil. What? Tampa Soil. Oh, okay, reconnected here. Sorry. Oh, here it is. So your Landscapes Corner. Okay, Landscapers Corner. That's here in Lexington. And they do have urea. I've been there. And here's the phone number. Call them. Caudale Seed Company. I don't know what that place is. Main Street. I've never heard of this place. So maybe it's down there. I've never heard of it. The one that I go to is just down the street. I don't see it here. It's the, well, it's not Southern Ag. I can't remember the name of it now. I don't see it. I don't see the one on here, but they have a couple different options here. And it has the prices. $44 a bag, $30 a 50-pound bag, $32 a bag, $20 a bag, $22 a bag. So there's all sorts of different things here you can go to, but you can at least get a ballpark ideas of whether or not it's near you. If you're living in a location you can't seem to find it, I would go to ChatGPT and just ask it, see what it says. It might give you a location near you that has it. Now, I get this question from a member. This was from one of the members' chat that I put in the members-only chat just last week. Are wetting agent, and this was the response, are wetting agents beneficial for turf grass? Now, I'll tell you right now, the answer is definitely yes. In dry soils or in soils that are prone to localized dry spots, wetting agents are highly effective at letting water penetrate through the soil. And it's so effective, so much so, that con artists have used that knowledge to fool people into buying things like liquid aeration, because they'll add a little bit of wetting agent in there, and it gives the appearance that the water is moving through the soil of a compacted soil, whereas if you just applied water with your lawn, with your water hose, it would not go in. But with a wetting agent, it will. And that fools people into thinking that liquid aeration is having some effect. So the answer is definitely yes. It's not going to result in deeper penetration, it will result in deeper penetration, but one wetting agent is not going to be deeper penetrating than another wetting agent, given the same rate of, chemical that it's applied. It's not going to retain it in the top relative to another one. It's going to uniformly distribute moisture along the surface and then move the water into the soil profile. It will do that very effectively. Very, very effectively. Let's see what it says. Yes, wetting agents can be beneficial for turf grass, especially in soils prone to water repellency. So there you go. Such as sandy soils, thatchy surfaces, or drought-stressed areas. Their benefits, however, depend on formulation, application timing, and soil conditions. So it's pretty good. That's pretty accurate. Okay. I don't want to be too much longer on this because I got a lot to go to. They do have several citations here from Carnock and Doug and Keith again here in 2000. So there's several citations. that you can go and look at. But yes, wetting agents can be beneficial if you do not have localized dry spots, you do not have dry sandy soils or dry clay soils, then you probably won't see a benefit to applying wetting agent. I've worked with wetting agents for quite a while. I would say out of the 30 or 40 locations that I've put out wetting agent trials, I've seen a positive turfgrass response in maybe 3 or 4. But in those 3 or 4, I saw the response all the time. Well, it happened to be those 3 or 4 locations were very hydrophobic, and the other locations just weren't. They didn't have the hydrophobic soils that the other one did. So it's like trying to take a Tylenol for a headache that you don't have. If you don't have a headache, Tylenol's not going to help. But if you have the headache, it will help. That's what I would say about wetting agents. And we'll get into wetting agents on this issue, on this topic that we're going over right now in waters. Let's go to the next one. This question was also posted from a member. What is the recommended cutting height for centipede grass? And I just put in Alabama. I added Alabama. And it says 1 to 2 inches. Now we know the recommended cutting height on centipede grass is around 1 to 2 inches. Okay. Key guidelines based on Alabama Extension turfgrass. So here you go. Alabama Extension turfgrass. Home lawns, generally 1 to 1.5 inches. Shady or stressed areas, you cut it a little higher, closer to 2 inches. Low input, up to 2 inches. Best practices, never remove more than 1/3 of the leaf blade. Use a sharp blade. Avoid mowing when wet. Seasonal adjustments, and it kind of moves the height up and down. And it says, would you like a visual mowing height centipede tailored to... Yeah, let me type that in. It says, would you like a visual mowing height guide? Yes. Provide a visual mowing height guide. See what it does. It's going to give me an image. Maybe it's by month or something. Let's see what it generates. It's just generating an image. I don't know if it's... And that might take some time. But it looks like it's pulling that from like an extension bulletin or something, which is fine. I mean, I tell people all the time that the PDFs to all the land grant universities are in the description of each live video, and that's where I recommend you go. For sure. Oh, so it's just generating like a little thumbnail. It says centipede grass recommended height 1 to 2 inches, and it kind of gives like a step down 2 inches, to 1 inch. I don't know what this little line is here, but it kind of gives you an idea of, I guess, the height of cut. I don't know. That's not very useful. Okay, next question. Is there any concern with over applying nitrogen to centipede grass? That was another question posted by one of the members. Is there any concern with over applying? Now we know that centipede grass works best or functions best on low input, low nitrogen, like maybe a pound and a half in for the year would be on the higher end, depending on where you live. You get up there in the 2s and 3s, I'm not saying you're going to see centipede grass collapse, but you're certainly pushing the risk of centipede grass decline. So let's see what it says. Yes, overapplying nitrogen to centipede grass is a well-documented concern. Centipede grass is a low-input species that does not tolerate high nitrogen levels as well as other warm season grasses like Bermuda grass and soja grass. Okay, there we go. Let's see if it has a rate. Okay, here you go. Recommended nitrogen rates, general recommendations, 1/2 to 2 pounds a year. Yeah, I mean, 2 pounds a year might be a little bit on the high end, but, it's okay. I mean, it depends on your situation. University of Alabama, 1 pound a year. No nitrogen after August 15th in Alabama is what they say. So if you have a question about that in your particular area, just put in, what's the rate of nitrogen for centipede grass in Florida or in whatever? Tell ChatGPT where you're at, and the recommendations it provided are pretty close. Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. So another win for AI on that one. Is there any concern with over-applying phosphorus to centipede grass? I don't really know the answer to this question. I know a lot of people think that applying calcium or liming the soil is going to cause a phosphorus deficiency, or applying phosphorus is going to cause other deficiencies in centipede grass. I'm not real sold on that, but let's see what ChatGPT says. Yes, over-applying phosphorus to centipede grass can cause several serious problems. Centipede grass is particularly sensitive to high phosphorus levels, and excess phosphorus can lead to nutrient imbalances. Okay, here we go. Iron deficiencies. High soil phosphorus interferes with iron uptake, leading to yellowing even when soil iron is adequate. Zinc and manganese deficiencies, environmental risk. Of course, that's always the case if you're over-applying phosphorus. Reduce root growth and centipede grass decline. Yeah, chronic overfertilization of NNP has been linked to a long-term turf decline and thinning. So I'm not overly sold on the issues with phosphorus on centipede grass. There probably is something there. There's definitely something there with nitrogen. But I would say all in all, that's probably pretty close to accurate. Yeah, I would say that. So low nitrogen to no nitrogen, maybe a tiny half pound, a pound, like I said, a pound and a half. It was set up here at maybe 2 pounds, depending on where you're at. That's probably in the ballpark. Yeah. I got to keep going. Next question. This again from a member. Does solid tine aerification on turf grass improve soil porosity? So now we're starting to get detailed, like more detailed specific questions here. Okay. Solid tine aerification can improve soil porosity in turf, is what it says. But the effect is generally short-term, shallow, and limited compared to core aerification. Now, there is a document on core aerification versus solid tine aerification that I have not gone over. And I swear I'm probably going to get this wrong. But my recollection is that they measured the density of the soil where the solid tine punched through the soil, and they measured the density of that soil around it compared to a hollow tine. And it did show that solid tine is not going to necessarily, it's actually going to result in more compressed soil around that tine compared to hollow tine. Okay. So whatever that did to the turf grass, I can't remember off the top of my head what that paper said. No, in other words, I don't really care about that. What I care about is what's going on with the turf. I can't remember what the turf response was, but it did actually result in compression of the soil around the tine, the hole, the core. And the solid tine, or the hollow tine actually pulled it out, so there was no compression. And they have some citations here. McNitt found solid tine improved infiltration temporarily, but were less effective than hollow tines, 97. Caro and Petrovic in 92 recommended solid tine use for intermediate cultivation between more aggressive hollow tine or deep tine practices. In Turgeon's 2012 book notes solid tine aeration as useful for surface loosening, but not for true soil modification. That's probably true, yeah. It's probably on target there, yeah. Okay, question again from a member. I think I saw him earlier here tonight. I might be wrong. He says, I live in Connecticut and I want to have a perfect lawn, not just a good lawn, but a perfect lawn. Can you develop a lawn care plan? Oh, plan. I put plant. A lawn care plan to meet that objective. And it says, absolutely. Here's a comprehensive science-based lawn care plan tailored to Connecticut's cool season climate with a goal of achieving a perfect lawn. Now, let's see what it says. I don't have an answer to this. I can give you, if you tell me the turf and the location, I can give you a really strong recommendation for the nutrient requirements of that lawn, but I can't tell you cutting heights for every place in Connecticut and every turf grass in Connecticut and water requirement. I can't tell you all that, but let's see what it says. Grass type and overseeding. The ideal mix is 70% Kentucky bluegrass, 30% perennial ryegrass for aesthetics and repair. Overseed late August to mid-September. Renovation, that's probably true. Late August to mid-September in Connecticut is probably in the ballpark. Renovation every 3 to 5 years, even in perfect lawns, to introduce elite varieties. That's an interesting inclusion there. So it's saying you should renovate every 3 to 5 years, if nothing else, just to introduce newer cultivars, which in today's, 20 years ago, I would have said that's ridiculous. Don't worry about it. But today we're releasing new cultivars. Well, they were back then too, but now it's even this, the machine is pumping out more and more cultivars of turfgrass, and the newer cultivars are leaving the old cultivars in the dust. It is really significantly different. If you don't believe me, look at Floritam St. Augustine grass next to a stand of Cobalt St. Augustine grass, and you'd be like, what the heck is this Floritam? It looks like junk compared to Cobalt. It's like night and day. And that's the same thing exists for these cool season grasses with respect to tall fescue and bluegrass. There's great movements forward in genetics for sure. Mowing 2.5 to 3.5 inches 2 times a week. Mulch in place the clippings. Keep razor sharp. Yeah, there you go. There's very little you can do that will have more of an impact on your turfgrass quality than keeping your blades sharp every time. That will have more of an effect on turfgrass quality than probably anything you do other than water, really. Other than keeping the water ideal, number 2 would be keep those blades sharp. Fertilization, 0.5 pound in May, 1 pound in September, 1 pound in October, 2.5 to 3 pounds a year. Yeah, I'd agree with that. In the ballpark, yeah. Yeah. Use a soil test to adjust P and K. Avoid P unless the soil test says you need to. Use chelated iron. I would say use chelated iron, but you spray it out, don't spread it out. Irrigation, 1 to 1.5 inches per week. That's rain plus irrigation. See here? I went over this on the members only show on Monday. Rain plus irrigation. Total of about 1 inch to 1.5 inches a week. So if it rains 1/2 inch, apply about 1/2 inch of water from irrigation. If it rains 1 inch, don't worry about it. And that's in the ballpark for sure. Deep and infrequent is what they have on the irrigation, 4 to 7 a.m. And use a moisture sensor to verify the coverage. Weed control. Applies pre-emergent in the spring, mid-April. That's probably in the ballpark. Spot treat in the fall for broadleaf leaves, and it even tells you 2,4-D or MCP and dicamba. So yeah, it's not bad. Manual removal, weekly spot hand pulling if minimal. Aeration and thatch. Core aeration 1 time per year if it's compacted. Dethatching only if thatch is more than 1/2 inch. That's not bad, really. Top dressing and soil health. Apply compost-based top dressing. Apply wetting agents, optional. I would agree with that, yeah. Insect and disease measurement. Scout for white grubs in July. Prevent dollar spot and leaf spot with culture controls. Fungicide only if needed. Snow and winter prep. Avoid late nitrogen past October 15th. I agree with that. Mark sprinkler heads and pass to avoid plow damage. There you go. See, it's even including stuff like that. Minimize salt splash from driveways on the turf. There you go. Anyway, it's not bad. Yeah. PGRs, it says optional. Optional perfection enhancers. There's a marketing term that generated right there. I've never heard that. You can put it on a marker. These are optional perfection enhancers. Plant growth regulator. Charge more for that. Don't do it for free. Primo Max, I would agree. If you want a really good looking lawn, you can get one without plant growth regulators. If you want a perfect lawn, it's not easy to get without a plant growth regulator. You can do it, but it's very challenging without a plant growth regulator. Foliar iron, kick it off. Yeah, pretty good. Not bad. Not bad. So there you go for that member who asked that question. ChatGPT is in the ballpark. Next question. Is there any evidence for wetting agents or liquid aerate type products improving seed establishment? This is another question that a member put on the members only chat. If you want to be a member and you want to participate in those chats, it's $5 a month. You can be a pro member for $10 a month, and you can get access to all these chats on the posts that I post under members only. Let's see what it says. It says, is there any evidence for wetting agents or liquid aerate type products improving seed establishment? Now, specific to seed establishment, that's a little bit outside my specialty. I don't know the answer to that. I would say it's possible if for some reason you're in a very, very dry climate and you're having difficulty with irrigation or something, maybe you could hold a little bit more water more uniformly in the surface. I don't know. It says, yes, there is some evidence that wetting agents can improve seed establishment, particularly in hydrophobic soils or sandy root zones, but there is little to no credible evidence that liquid aerate products, often marketed as replacements for mechanical aeration, have any meaningful benefit for turfgrass seed establishment. Nice. Little jab at liquid aeration. And then it gives the information about scientific evidence for wetting agents. So I would say it's, again, in the ballpark. Yeah. It really hammers liquid aeration. That's a question I have later if I get to it. And it has some scientific evidence for wetting agents, no scientific evidence for liquid aeration. So again, it's in the ballpark. A very common question is the next question. Will gypsum alleviate soil compaction? No, unless it's in a sodic soil that has been compacted as a result of sodium. That's just the way it is. Okay. Gypsum's never, ever going to alleviate soil compaction unless it's in a sodic soil and that sodic soil has been compressed as a result of soil dispersion from sodium. That's the only way. Okay, let's see what ChatGPT says. No, okay. Gypsum will not alleviate soil compaction in most turfgrass settings, especially in non-sodic soils like those common in the U.S. Northeast, Midwest, and Southwest. So there you go. I mean, it hallucinates heavily in some cases. In other cases, it's dead on. The myth, gypsum loosens hard soil. Reality, gypsum does not change soil texture, bulk density, or physical structure in non-sodic soils. Look at that. Yes. I mean, but again, how would you know? Because I've shown some cases where it's just hallucinating and it's wrong. In this case, it's dead right. Calcium flocculates clay. This is true. Okay. Oh, it says reality. This is true. Only in sodic soils where calcium replaces sodium to improve soil structure. Yes. So again, only in sodic soils. So if you don't have a sodic soil, calcium sulfate is going to do squat, basically, unless you have a sulfate deficiency or a bona fide calcium deficiency. That's different. Oh, here's a good one. Gypsum breaks up clay. That's the myth. What is it? It doesn't break up clay. Mechanical action is needed to physically reduce compaction. Look at that. Now, as a soil scientist, I can sit here and pick these off like taking candy from a baby. These are easy to pull out. As an average person reading this, you might not know what's true and what's not true. That's kind of why I'm going through this. A lot of stuff we've been going over is true. Some of the stuff is completely dead wrong. Okay. Let's see what it says about when gypsum may be useful. Sodic soils, I've said that before. High magnesium or low calcium magnesium ratio. Okay, let me read this slowly. Sodic soils, gypsum displaces sodium on cation exchange complexes, improving migration and drainage. This is true. The next situation where gypsum may be useful, it says high magnesium or low calcium to magnesium ratio. This is complete BS. Calcium magnesium ratio has no impact on turfgrass production quality performance in any way. We've never been able to measure that. At extremely high ratios of calcium magnesium and extremely low ratios all over the board. So did Dr. Baer, who came up with BCSR, and Dr. Albrecht, who came up with BCSR. Their calcium magnesium ratios on alfalfa were all over creation, and maximum yield occurred at all over creation calcium magnesium ratios. So this is complete BS. Again, you wouldn't know this, I don't think, as the average person, but it says calcium magnesium ratios may slightly improve soil structure if calcium is limiting, but this is rare in turf soils. This is not going to happen, guys. This is complete nonsense. So where it is useful, sulfur deficiencies. As I mentioned, calcium sulfate is a source of sulfate sulfur. And I have alleviated sulfur deficiencies in turfgrass myself using gypsum. So that will be a benefit to it. Like I said, calcium deficiency almost never happens. Sulfate deficiency is fairly common nowadays. In both those cases, it would be beneficial. Yeah. Very interesting. Some cases is dead on. The other case, ChatGPT, is dead wrong. Dead on or dead wrong. One of the two. Next question. I'll get to the questions in the chat. Okay. I'm going to get to them. My salesman told me that this product works and that everyone is using it. I know that is a fallacy, but I can't remember the name. What is it? So we know from the channel, hopefully from the channel, we've learned that error in reasoning is the bandwagon fallacy. Everybody's doing it. It works and everybody's doing it. And that can be very convincing because you want to be part of the group. Humans generally have like a hive mentality or tribe mentality. We want to be part of the group. Well, everybody could be wrong. Don't forget. Okay. Let's see what it says. You're thinking of here you go. Check this out. You're thinking of the bandwagon fallacy, also known as an appeal to popularity. And then it goes through it. Perfect. I'm going to skip through it quickly. So there you go. It pulled that out right on target. Oh, the next question is, it already answered. I said, will gypsum break up clay soils? It already answered that. So I'm going to skip past that. Next question. Is there a soil test iron level when liquid iron would be more effective on turfgrass? So I'm going to tell you the answer to this question. There is not really a soil test iron level that you can rely upon or depend upon to give you some confidence that you're going to see a response from liquid applied iron or not. You're almost always going to see a response to liquid applied iron. Full stop, regardless of what the iron content of the soil is. As long as you're applying around 1 to 5 pounds per acre, not per 1,000 square feet, per acre of iron as a soluble iron source. That can be iron sulfate, iron citrate, iron chelate, any sort of iron, glucoheptanate, lignosulfate, whatever, polysaccharides, whatever. As long as it's soluble and you apply it to the leaf surface at 1 to 5 pounds of iron per acre, you're going to very, very likely see a turfgrass response, regardless of what the iron in the soil says. There's not good, reliable data on soil test iron levels. So just forget it. That's the answer. Okay, let's see what it says. Yes, liquid iron applications are often more effective than soil applications, especially when soil iron levels are adequate, but turfgrass still shows chlorosis. This commonly occurs when, it kind of goes through. Well, I don't want to do that. It says soil test iron is adequate, but uptake is impaired. That doesn't show me the level. Oh, here it goes. Typical soil test iron guidelines. Now, this is going to be basically a big fat nothing sandwich, big fat guess. Low iron says a 4 to 5 parts per million. Marginal is 5 to 10, and sufficient iron is 10 parts per million or greater if Mehlich 3. I would say that very well could be true or not true. You see numbers 55, 50 parts per million. If it's less than that, it's deficient. I would say I don't have hardly any confidence in any of those values in Malic 3 or any other extract with soil iron, okay? Because there's just not much correlation, and there's certainly no calibration on soil test iron levels. So I would not use soil test iron levels at all, in anything. Unless you're a scientist, I wouldn't consider it at all. Just move on, mark it off, and just don't use the soil test iron level, period. You apply foliar iron when you need some color. It's going to last until the turf grass is mowed off. Think of it like that. If you're mowing your grass, you're mowing your putting greens if you're mowing it every day, maybe it lasts for 2 or 3 days. But if you're mowing your home lawn once a week, it's going to last about a week, maybe 2. It's not going to last very long, but think of it, it's going to stain the leaf or it's going to turn the leaf a color. And then as soon as the plant grows through that leaf and it gets cut off, the color is gone. That's the way I would look at it. Those are general terms, but that's the way I look at it. I got to move a lot faster. I'm never going to get through this. Next question. My soil phosphorus is 6 pounds per acre using Malic 1. I don't have noticeable signs of phosphorus deficiency. Could I get a positive turfgrass response from applying some phosphorus? The answer to that question is almost definitely yes. If your soil phosphorus is 6 pounds per acre at a 6-inch soil depth, that means there's around 3 parts per million on a Malic 1. That is very low. And the likelihood of seeing a turfgrass response to phosphorus applications when your soil test levels at 3 parts per million Malic 1 is really good. Okay, let's see what it says. With a Malic 1 phosphorus level of 6 pounds per acre, your soil is in the very low deficient range, and yes, a positive turfgrass response to phosphorus application is likely, even if deficiency symptoms are not visually apparent. So there you go. I would say I agree with that. I'm not entirely in the same boat when it comes to if you don't see a phosphorus deficiency, but I'm assuming you're a specialist in turfgrass nutrient deficiency symptoms. In other words, if you don't know what you're looking for, how do you know if it's showing up? So if you don't know what you're looking for and you're not really seeing anything, you might have a phosphorus deficiency. You just don't know how to diagnose it. So applying phosphorus, you might see a response. But a trained turfgrass nutritionist could go out there and very easily identify the phosphorus deficiency, even if the average person would not be able to. And in both cases, either case, you'd see a phosphorus response. You very likely see a response if to applying phosphorus in that case. Yeah, good question. I like that question. There's another question from a member that put it in the chat or the post. Does applying silicon have any real benefit for turfgrass, and is it worth the cost? Well, those are 2 questions. Strictly speaking, the answer is probably. You can't say it definitely doesn't have a benefit to it. But there's 2 functionalities of silicon. I'm not a silicon expert, but there is, in the literature that I've looked into, some possible benefits to actually taking up the silicon in the plant. Whereas there's other benefits where the silicon might actually stay on the outside of the leaf surface. And that may impart a benefit on the leaf surface itself. So it's very, very unlikely, I would say. The chances are extremely low, but it is possible. Is it worth the cost? Probably not. That's what I would say. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Oops. It says, silicon applications to turfgrass has shown potential benefits, particularly under stress conditions, but for most managed lawns and sports fields, its benefits are inconsistent, and it is rarely cost-effective in practical turf management, and has a whole list of the conditions and observed benefits of drought stress, salt stress, disease pressure, and all these other things. Silicon is I wouldn't say a trickster's approach to selling fertilizer. That's probably a bit harsh. But I would, again, that's one of those elements I would never, ever, ever, ever consider unless I had water dialed in. I was aware of the light and temperature influences as a result of season changes. My mower blades were sharp. I didn't have any disease or insect damage. I got the NPK figured out. I got the pH figured out. I got all this stuff figured out. Then if you have everything absolutely perfect and you're running, everything's great, I know there might be some benefit that you might see from silicon, but I would never consider it unless I had all that other prerequisite already done. Okay. That would be my approach to silicon. And it sounds like that's basically what they're saying here. I mean, it's inconsistent. It says benefits are inconsistent and rarely cost effective. Not to say you wouldn't see a response, but it's highly unlikely and it's probably not going to be worth the money. It says wind silicon might be worth it. High value warm season turf under stress, saline irrigation water, experimental or research driven use. Well, that's what we do. In sand-based greens where silicon may be very low and plant uptake is efficient. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things where you don't want to shut the door on something before there's good evidence in, and there's just not a lot of good evidence in either way. But it's not my responsibility to go track down all the evidence. Like I've said before, I don't have to go track down all the evidence. It's up to the people making the claim to provide the evidence. And if the person providing the claim, if they're saying silicon's going to do all these magical things, then show me the evidence. They're the one making the claim, not me. Next question. In a soil with a pH of 6.5 and Mehlich 3 aluminum 660 parts per million, is there any chance of aluminum causing turfgrass toxicity or any chance of that aluminum having an effect on availability of other nutrients in the soil? Now, I'll answer that question as best I can. This is sort of in my area. The answer is almost never. The reason is because aluminum is not really going to cause any problems at a pH of 6.5. You're not going to see aluminum toxicity levels until you get way down in the low 4s or high 3s. Then you're going to see some aluminum potentially cause some problems. However, if you have 660 parts per million in a soil pH of 6.5, I would want to look to see if there's something else going on there. If you're pulling that from, if there was an error in the testing, or if you're pulling that from something else might have caused that, I don't know. But even at 6.5, I'm going to tell you, there's almost zero chance of any aluminum causing a problem. It's just not going to be soluble at that pH. Let's see what ChatGPT says. In a soil with a pH of 6.5 and Mehlich 3 aluminum of 660 parts per million, there is no realistic chance of aluminum toxicity in turf. Okay, well, there you go. Again, it's dead on. Nor is there likely any meaningful impact on availability of other nutrients. That's absolutely true. And if anybody is really, really bored and really wants to learn all about it, you would want to look up this book and read this book called Environmental Chemistries of Soil by Murray McBride. It is unbelievably difficult to understand. It's not easy. It's many, many magnitude level above my pay grade, but the answers are in that book. Okay. That's what I would go with. Next question. Oh, here's a good one. Do nanobubbles in ozone benefit turfgrass? Okay. Now, for those of you who don't know, I do have a YouTube or a Twitter channel, but I never go on Twitter. I have a bot that posts these videos on Twitter, and they takes clips of my show and it puts them on Twitter and on Instagram and Facebook. And they posted something on nanobubbles and ozone the other day, and I go back on there. I got a text from a friend of mine in Florida. And he said, hey, you might want to check this out. And so I got on and looked. I'm like, what is going on? There's this company who apparently took offense to my comment on nanobubbles and ozone and started kind of fighting back a little bit. And so I included this question here just for him. Let's see what it says. There is limited and inconclusive scientific evidence that nanobubbles or ozone provide consistent or agronomically meaningful benefits to turfgrass. Yes. Nice. Nice. While both technologies are being marketed for use in turfgrass irrigation, peer-reviewed research does not currently support their widespread use as cost-effective management tools. Genius. Again, I mean, you don't, if you just read this as an average person, you might assume everything it says is true. Everything it says is not true, as I've shown many examples tonight. But in this case, it's dead on. It's true. Nanobubble claims improved oxygenation of root zone, enhanced microbial activity, disease suppression, better root development. Research summary. Nanobubbles irrigation. This is from Liu et al. 2020 in Agronomy Journal. Nanobubbles irrigation on creeping bentgrass did not significantly improve turf color density or root biomass compared to controls. I don't know if I went over the Liu paper. McElroy in 2021, nanobubbles showed no consistent effects on disease suppression or turf quality under normal irrigation regimes. And I know I didn't go over Scott's paper. I'm going to have to go over that. Nice. And then the limitations, most studies to date are short-term, lack replication, or conducted in greenhouse settings with limited field evaluation. There's a couple of field studies that also said nothing happened. And it talks about ozone. And it says the same thing. No conclusive peer-reviewed field trials showed that ozonated water significantly improved turfgrass health. Ozone has strong oxidizing power, but this can damage beneficial microbes, and its residual activity is extremely short-lived. So even ChatGPT, which hallucinates half the time, got it correct on this particular one. Great. Next question. What was the weekly average reference evapotranspiration in Chicago last week? Now, if you didn't watch Monday's show, go back and watch that. I opened it up to the public. And on there, I showed where to go find reference evapotranspiration wherever you're at in the United States for the week. They're predicted or anticipated weekly reference evapotranspiration, so you can set your irrigation schedule accordingly. And with the exception of the arid desert climates, it's about an inch a week. If you're in the temperate zones of the United States, it's going to be around an inch each week, depending on the week of the year. Okay. But I showed you that. And I know for this week, which I did that show on Monday. So for this week, it's around 1.1 to 0.9. It kind of depends on where you were in Chicago, but around 1 inch. Let's see what ChatGPT says. As of now, there is no publicly available data set providing the exact weekly average reference ET for Chicago for the week of April 28th. However, we can estimate this value using historical data. Estimated weekly evapotranspiration for Chicago in the Midwest, including Chicago daily ET values in late April to early May, typically range from 0.1 to 0.15 per day. And the estimated weekly ET would be 0.84 inches for the week. Now, that's going to be ET, not reference ET, but it's going to be in the ballpark. Okay? We know it's around an inch. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but it's around an inch. It's certainly nowhere in the stratosphere close to what people are applying to their lawns normally, applying an inch or 2 inches a day. It's insane. So for the week, it's around an inch, and ChatGPT had in the ballpark. It's in the ballpark. Had a 0.84 for the week. It estimated it. So and the reason I included that is because if you don't know where to go and you didn't watch Monday's show, you can go to ChatGPT and use ChatGPT to give you an idea as to what it might be. And you can actually ask ChatGPT, can you show me references or where I can go find reference evapotranspiration? Okay, there you go. Where can I find data on reference evapotranspiration? Let's see what it says about this. It says it might take a minute because I just typed it in. You can find reference evapotranspiration data from several trusted sources that serve turfgrass managers and agronomists. Well, it's taking a minute to populate the answer. Let me take a drink here. Well, it's taken some time to generate the answer. A couple of final questions. I got a few more questions left here. It says, here are the best options. Yeah, I don't know. It may not give me the answer. It's thinking. It's still thinking. I don't know what it's going to do. Maybe locked up my system here. I don't know. Oh, Mike, I like your question. I'll definitely ask this question later, Mike. Okay. As soon as ChatGPT fixes itself here. Mike in the chat says, is there really a benefit to stress blend fertilizers for turfgrass? Yeah, I'll ask that question. Let's see what it says. As soon as I think I broke ChatGPT. Okay, here it comes. It came back. National Weather Service. And it says NOAA. This is where I pulled the data from. NOAA. Ag WeatherNet or local forecast offices. So there you go. FAWN, Florida Area Network. So there's some sources you can pull from to find reference evapotranspiration area. So again, this is an area that I would use ChatGPT for. Where can I go find this information? And it'll tell you. Then you can go to that website and get the actual data, even if ChatGPT can't get it for you. Okay. Is there any evidence to support the use of humic acids in turfgrass? Now, we haven't gone over humic acids a whole lot, but in general, there is very scant data on using humic acids in turfgrass, very scant evidence. There's not much at all. The evidence that does exist is basically saying it's probably not useful at all, except for in some really strange scenarios where there happens to be the exact right type of stress. But let's see what it says. The scientific evidence supporting the use of humic acids in turfgrass is limited and inconsistent. While humic acids are often marketed as biostimulants that enhance root growth, nutrient uptake, and stress tolerance, peer-reviewed turfgrass research has not demonstrated consistent or significant benefits under well-managed conditions. Well, so there you go. I don't know where it's pulling that from. It doesn't have a citation, but I would agree. There may be some strange happenstance where you might actually, the stars might align just right, and you might find something beneficial to using humic acids, but it's pretty thin. It's pretty thin. It's not it's not a slam dunk. And I think I'm going to have to, it pulled, I see it's still searching. I think it's slowing my computer down. It's still searching. But it has a couple citations here. Zhang, we went over this Zhang study. The Fagerness and Yelverton study, we went over that study, I believe. And it says humic acids and fertilizer did not outperform fertilizer alone. Zhang and greenhouse studies, humic acids improved growth under nutrient deficient conditions, but not under adequate fertility. Landshut and McNitt in 97 found no consistent turf quality or growth improvement with humic acid on Kentucky bluegrass or bentgrass. So you can go to ChatGPT and ask it, what is the scientific consensus on the use of humic acids for turfgrass management? Don't ask it, is there supporting evidence? And then turn around and ask it, is there refuting evidence? Because it's going to say, yes, here's supporting evidence. Here's refuting evidence. If that's what you want, do it. But just ask, is there any consensus on this issue? Ask it a question that it doesn't have it can't perceive your interest. I just want to know, what's the consensus? Is it useful or not useful? And I would use it for that, yeah. Okay, I got about 6 or 7 more questions here. Then I'll go to the ones in the chat. Whoa, I think I might break it here. It is not. Oh, hang on. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can get this in here. Oh my gosh. I may have to restart ChatGPT or something. It's kind of flaking out on me here. Okay, let me try again. Okay, will applied potassium reduce turfgrass stress? So, I had this question written down. It's kind of in the ballpark of the question you asked. Will applied potassium reduce turfgrass stress? Here's the answer, and you guys can go back and look at the potassium playlist and get this answer for yourself. I had this whole listed out there. If you have reduced potassium in the soil and you happen to have a situation for winter kill, there's a potential that application of potassium might help reduce the risk of winter kill. If you happen to have, what was the other case? If you happen to have legitimately reduced potassium, like less than, say, 30, 40 parts per million omega-3, it's possible that you might be exhibiting a potassium deficiency, as I've shown on the channel. I've shown potassium deficiencies in turfgrass leaves on this channel. Then applying potassium might help in those cases. But in most cases, applying potassium when the potassium is already available is only going to increase the risk of disease, not reduce it. It's going to increase the risk of turfgrass stress, not reduce turfgrass stress. It's not going to have an effect on traffic tolerance or anything like that. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Oh, whoops. What happened? It's giving me 2 responses now. What happened here? I'll just click this one. Okay. Somehow it freaked out on me. Okay, here we go. Yes, it says, yes, potassium can help reduce turfgrass stress, but only if the soil is deficient or marginally sufficient in available potassium. Well, okay. Applying potassium beyond sufficiency levels does not further enhance stress tolerance and may even have unintended effects. Look at that. See, so there you go. Again, if you don't know, you're going to read that and saying, yes, that's absolutely true. I would not do that with ChatGPT. But in this case, I would say that's pretty close. Yes. If you have enough, applying more is only going to result in increased stress. If you don't have enough, then it may be beneficial. Applying potassium might be beneficial. Okay. Here it says, when potassium does help reduce stress, it says drought. It doesn't help with drought unless you're so deficient in potassium, you're actually having a potassium deficiency. Cold and winter kill, it will, again, only if you're deficient in the soil. Heat stress, it doesn't unless you're deficient in the soil, severely deficient. Traffic, there's very good evidence on traffic that it doesn't help at all with traffic. So again, it's hallucinating here. And disease suppression or disease tolerance, it does not help with that. And again, unless you're very, very low in potassium, and in most cases, you're actually going to result in more disease than less disease, because in most cases, you're not potassium deficient. You already have enough, and you're applying it anyway. Okay? So it's dead on the first paragraph here. Some of this on down here, this winter kill is correct. The rest of this is just BS generation. I don't know where it's pulling that from. I don't know if it has a citation for that, but it's just complete nonsense and BS. Yeah. Unless the potassium is deficient, unless the turfgrass is deficient, then I wouldn't apply it. You have too much risk of having other things happen. It's just not worth it. You're going to end up having to buy fungicides to cure the disease that was caused by you applying the potassium that you didn't need to apply to begin with. Okay. Let's go to the next question. Oh, well, that one was answered. The next question is, you just answered. They put it in here. Will applied potassium increase turfgrass traffic resistance? And it says applied potassium may improve turfgrass traffic resistance, but only when the soil is deficient or marginally sufficient in available potassium. Once soil potassiums are adequate K does not further enhance traffic tolerance. Yeah, it doesn't really. Trenholm did a lot of work on that. I don't know. They don't have the citations here. Sherman and Beard 75, but that wasn't really. The Steyer and Fay summarize that K contributions to wear recovery more than true. Yeah. There's a lot of work on that, but there really is not a slam dunk at all. Most of it will say nothing happened. Okay. So this used to go out a lot on sports turf. Oh, we'll go ahead and put it out. It's cheap and we'll just make sure we have enough. But it's probably not going to help. It's probably going to hurt, especially if you already have enough in the soil. Actually, it's probably not going to do anything. Probably nothing's going to happen at all. But if you already have enough, then the chances are better that something harmful would happen than something helpful. And you can go back and look at the literature on that. I went over that in great detail. Oh, this is the same question. Okay. So here's another question that came up occasionally in one of the article or one of the comments of one of my videos. Are natural organic fertilizers better for my lawn than synthetic? It says natural organic fertilizers are not inherently better than synthetic fertilizers for your lawn. Well, look at that. See, there you go. They each have distinct advantages and limitations, and the best choice depends on your goals, soil conditions, and management style. Yeah. I can create zero harm to the environment using synthetic and using natural, and I can create a massive environmental harm using synthetic or using natural. It all depends on the rate, the time of year of that product. So the risk is greater with the soluble, the synthetic. You have greater risk. If you don't know what you're doing, you need to be careful with those products. Even if you don't know what you're doing with natural organics, it's kind of hard to screw it up unless you just keep applying it over and over and over, year over year over year, and you start building up that phosphorus. You start building up the PFOS in the soil from the biosolids. That can be problematic. But you can create harm with either one or no harm with either one. And it has a comparative summary, organic versus synthetic fertilizer. Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with most of that. It has nutrient release, it has natural organic versus synthetic. It has nutrient release and content, soil health benefits, weed disease, precision control, cost, environmental leaching, and odor and aesthetics. Most of that's in the ballpark. Scientific consensus is no consistent superiority of natural organics versus synthetics. There's no consistent superiority. Organic fertilizers are beneficial for long-term soil health, but slower to show results. Synthetic fertilizers provide rapid green up and precise control, ideal for performance turf or quick recovery. And it kind of says when organic may be better or when synthetic may be better. Yeah, for the most part, I would agree with all that. Yeah, it's in the ballpark. Pretty close. Oh, we're coming down to the end here. I'm going to get to the questions. Here's one. Who operates the Twitter account, Turf Truth? This has been around for, I don't even know how long, 5-10 years. And no one knows who it is. Everybody blames me. Everybody thinks it's me. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Who operates the Twitter account, Turf Truth? The ChatGPT says the identity of the person or group operating the Twitter account Turf Truth is not publicly disclosed. The account is intentionally anonymous and has built a reputation within the turfgrass industry. Well, man, my computer's slowing down. Let's see what it says here. It'll come up in a second. I get this I used to get it like once a month. Now I get it like once or twice a year. Okay, here it goes. It came back up. Has built a reputation within the turfgrass industry for debunking pseudoscience and marketing claims, providing data-driven commentary and critiques of fertilizers, frequently challenging product manufacturers and sales reps over exaggerated and unsubstantiated claims. What is known? Turf Truth appears to be run by one or more highly knowledgeable turfgrass professionals, likely with backgrounds in agronomy, soil science, or turf research. Their commentary is widely followed by golf course superintendents, turfgrass scientists, and agronomists. The tone is critical, evidence-based, and sometimes satirical, targeting misinformation in the turf industry. Notable characteristics. Posts often cite peer-reviewed literature, regularly challenges base saturation models, liquid aeration, and unjustified biostimulant use. Their anonymity allows them to be candid and critical without industry pressure. The summary is the identity behind Turf Truth remains anonymous by design, but the account is widely respected and sometimes controversial for promoting science-based turf management and calling out misleading marketing in the turf industry. Would you like to summarize some of Turf Truth's most popular and influential posts? Well, anyway, that's interesting. It doesn't say who it is. It doesn't say, it just says it's intentionally anonymous, and it says it's highly respected. I don't know how it comes up with all that stuff, but ChatGPT doesn't know. Let's go to the next question. Will liquid dethatch reduce thatch in my lawn? We all know, we've gone over this. This is all a year and a half ago, where liquid dethatch isn't going to do bupkis to thatch in your lawn unless it contains an enzyme called lipase. And in that case, even that's hit and miss, but there is at least some evidence that lipase can help break down that lignaceous tissue in thatch. Let's see what ChatGPT says. No. Liquid dethatch products will not meaningfully reduce thatch in your lawn. Despite marketing claims, there is no credible scientific evidence that they effectively degrade or remove thatch under field conditions. Again, home runs, slam dunk on ChatGPT on this question. So it gets some of them just absolutely eerily accurate. And other times it's just so far off in left field, it's not even close, or it just BS generates a bunch of nonsense. Let's see, the claim of liquid dethatch as breakdown thatch. Reality, thatch is lignin-rich and microbially resistant. Breakdown requires specific microbial activity and oxygen, not a spray-on solution. Gee, that's good. Contains enzymes of microbes. That's the claim. Turf thatch already harbors microbes. Adding more in a bottle has not been shown to increase decomposition meaningfully. Genius, that's great. Reduces need for core aeration. No peer-reviewed evidence supports this. Mechanical aeration and top dressing are still needed. I wonder how the con men take this, because some of them are watching this. I've seen. There's been replies back to me from charlatans, jabbing at me. So I know they watch it. I wonder how they feel. They're just constantly met with refuting evidence all the time, and they just keep putting their head in the sand. Let's see what they see. The article just came out this last month on liquid aeration. There's only one liquid aeration product or study, and it says the same thing. It says no, it's not going to compete with core aeration at all. It doesn't even do anything compared to just normal fertility on thatch. Oh, I'm sorry, on aerification. Sorry, I switched gears on you there. I'm sorry. The conclusion is liquid dethatch products do not reduce thatch in any scientifically meaningful way. Effective thatch control requires mechanical and cultural practices, not spray-on solutions. So again, I would not go to ChatGPT and say this is definitely true, but we know this is the case because we reviewed many scientific papers on this issue. Okay, and it's accurate on that. Next question. We're coming down to the end here, and I'll get to the questions in the chat. Does liquid aerification benefit my turfgrass? Now, this is the one that we actually have a publication on. I'm sorry, I misspoke on the other one, liquid dethatch. We've gone over papers about products that claimed liquid dethatch a year and a half ago. The liquid aeration topic is the one that just came out this last month, and it shows the same. There's no benefit of liquid aeration in terms of aerifying the soil or creating more or less compacted soil. There may be a benefit in the turfgrass, but that benefit comes from just normal fertility anyway. The answer from ChatGPT says no. Liquid aerification products do not provide the same benefit as mechanical aerification, and there is no scientific evidence that they significantly improve soil compaction, infiltration, or turfgrass performance in the way they are marketed. Dead on. Absolutely dead on. So the charlatans and scam artists and the seer stone sellers and all the Uri Gellers of the world who are selling all this nonsense, that is what they are. They are con artists and scam artists who are scamming the industry, scamming you, and polluting our industry with misinformation, and they couldn't care less. As long as they get their money, that's all they care about. Because liquid aeration, there is no scientific evidence that it does anything. Now there's scientific evidence to refute what it's saying. Liquid dethatch, nothing at all in the scientific literature. In fact, there's refuting evidence in the scientific literature, but they just keep selling it, keep pushing it out, and they could not care less. That sort of approach is highly damaging to our industry. And that's one reason why this channel exists, because it drives me nuts how there's nobody out there on the other side providing equal content to refute this nonsense other than this channel. And I mean, I take that back. There are actually a couple channels that do that before I started. They didn't do it in the same way I do it. They're a little bit more entertaining than this channel. But nevertheless, they were doing it before me. I came on and started doing it a little bit more science and more of a boring way, I guess. But nevertheless, that was it. Okay, that was it. So now let me go to the questions that were in the chat. Joe Calla. Ashanti asked the question. I thought I had that question. Oh my gosh, thanks, Ashanti. I completely skipped this question in my, I had it written down and somehow I missed it. This is about base saturation. So Shawnee says, what is the base cation saturation ratio and is it useful? So I would type in, is base cation saturation beneficial for turfgrass? I thought I had that written down. Sorry. Thanks, Ashani, for that question. Let's see what ChatGPT says. ChatGPT says no. And it takes a little while for ChatGPT to generate the response. But the first word that came up, it just said no, and then it paused there for about 2 seconds with just the word no on the screen. Great. And this goes back to all the other con artists and scam artists. And I love going over this stuff too, because it just gets them so ticked off, because they've been living in a world, in a fantasy world, where they were never challenged. No one ever stepped up and challenged them face to face and said, you guys are complete con artists, you're scam artists, you're BS artists, you're charlatans. And so because there was nobody of equal force on the opposite side, a lot of people started following this. A lot of superintendents still follow this stuff. And they'll say, no, I've been doing it, and I believe it. I believe it. No one's saying it won't result in good turf. What we're saying is it's going to cost a mountain of more money to result in that quality turf that you're looking at, Mr. and Superintendent, right now who's listening to this. That turf that looks really good according to base cation saturation that you're looking at right now, it can look the exact same if you don't follow base cation saturation for less money. That's what we're saying. Let's see. Now it says, no, managing turfgrass nutrition based on base cation saturation ratios is not supported by scientific evidence, and it offers no agronomic benefit over managing based on sufficiency levels of individual nutrients. How about that? How about that? Thank you, Ashanti. I had this question written down, and somehow I omitted it. And so if you hadn't put that in the chat, I would have completely forgotten to put this in there. Thank you for doing that. And then it goes on and says, what is base saturation? It talks about calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium ratios, and percentages on the exchange sites. And it says scientific consensus. Don't underestimate or undervalue this word consensus. This is not one person saying this. This is the consensus of specialists in this area. Okay? The Kopetki-Mincy paper, we went over this. The Sabi, we didn't go over the Sabi paper. The Carroll 2001 paper, we did not go over that either, I don't think. And then the University Extension. But it says no ideal base cation saturation exists. Base cation saturation is not predictive of turf or crop performance. Nutrient sufficiency is more reliable. Turfgrass growth is driven by absolute nutrient availability, not cation ratios. Then it says, why doesn't it work? Turfgrass performance is controlled by nutrient concentrations, not proportions. Cation ratios are meaningless on low CEC soils with limited nutrient retentions. And even the con artists will tell you that. They'll tell you anything less than 10 is not useful, but yet they'll still sell you products. Mr. Superintendent who's listening to this right now, they're still selling you products on your putting green that has a CEC less than 10, even though their Bible will tell you it doesn't work when it's less than 10. Think about that, Mr. Superintendent who's listening to this. They're selling you product that they know does not, based upon a philosophy of soil testing, that they know doesn't work when the CEC is less than 10, based upon their own BS manual. But they're still coming into your office and still selling that stuff based on base count saturation. It's not me saying that. It's them saying that. Go look it up. I've looked it up on my channel. I've shown it on my channel, their book, right behind me. This is now the third time I've gone over it. It's in this book. This is their book, The Art of Balancing Soils. And in this book, it says, in the first preface, it says, balance can be achieved nicely by using base count saturation on soils with total exchange capacities greater than 10. It's right here in the preface of their own book. Where is it at? Where is it on the thing? It's right there. It's in their own book. And they come into your office and they sell you fertilizer based upon it when your CEC on your putting greens is probably 3 or 4. And they're still selling you that stuff based upon that philosophy. That's a con artist. That's a charlatan. Next question. Going to go to bed with blood pressure through the roof. Okay. Oh, here's a good response here. It says, what works instead? There you go. We go, well, Travis, you're telling me it doesn't work. Well, what does work? I've told you what it works. Sufficiency level, critical limit theory. That's what works. And it says right here, sufficient level approach. And I'm not saying the numbers. What I'm talking about is the concept. There's a number in the soil, a concentration of nutrient in the soil, whereby below this concentration, the turf starts to show nutrient deficiencies, and the application of that element will result in alleviation of that deficiency, and the turf will grow to its potential. That's the concept. The actual value or number is going to change slightly based upon the turf, based upon the soil, and these things based upon the soil extract and so forth. And here it has some values, which I'm not in agreement with, but focus on whether each nutrient is above or below the critical level. For example, calcium, it says above 150. Now, I have seen turf grass at about 110, 100 parts per million at 6-inch soil depth that was growing. It didn't look calcium deficient to me, but I went ahead and recommended applying calcium because it was so low and the turf looked poor. It looked bad. It just didn't look like a calcium deficiency to me. So 150 is pretty low. I'll say that. 150 parts per million is a little too risky for me. Magnesium 50, that's way higher than necessary. Magnesium is probably closer to 20. Potassium at 40 to 50, that's in the ballpark. 40 to 50, that's in the ballpark. That's definitely, actually, that's dead on, actually. That's what I would say, 40 to 50. Magnesium, that's way, you don't need 50 parts per million magnesium. You have 50 parts per million magnesium, you're okay. Calcium, you got 150 parts per million, and that's pretty low. But the point is not the numbers. The point is the numbers are probably in the ballpark. The point is the concept. And clearly they're pointing out where base count saturation is complete hogwash. It's sold by charlatans, and it fleeces you and your members or your owners of your golf course or your sod production or your home lawns or whatever the case is, or sport fields. It's fleecing you out of more money. You're not getting anything in return for that other than what you could already achieve, which is a normal nutrient program based upon critical limit theory or the sufficiency limit approach. Thank you so much for Shawnee. I would have completely missed that. Let's go for the next one. Joe Callis says, I don't know how can I copy this? I can't copy that. He says, can I ask ChatGPT to summarize the following article? Okay, I can do that. St. Augustine grass quality and nutrient content. Oh, yeah, that's my article. Okay, nutrient content in response to granular. There's a better AI for this. Granular and foliar iron, manganese, and magnesium. Now I'm going to do this, Joe, but I'm going to show you a better way to do it. Okay. Please summarize the scientific article. Sorry, I didn't have this ready. I'm just typing it in, but I'm going to show you a better way to do this, Joe. And it's actually quite good. So I just typed in, please summarize the scientific article saying oxygen, grass quality, nutrient content in response to granular and foliar iron, magnesium. So let's see if it does it. I don't know if it's going to do it or not. Okay, well, here we go. It did it. A 2-year study conducted in Jay and Citra, Florida, evaluated the effects of granular and foliar applications of iron, manganese, and magnesium on palmetto, St. Augustine grass quality and nutrient content. Key findings. Foliar iron consistently improved turfgrass quality across both locations in years, correlating with increased leaf iron concentrations. That was true. Granular iron did not enhance turfgrass quality or tissue iron levels, suggesting limited efficiency efficacy in this form. Yeah, that's true too. Foliar manganese applications had negligible effects on turf quality and tissue manganese concentrations. Notably, granular manganese reduced turfgrass quality by approximately 20% in Citra during 2015. That was also true. Granular magnesium showed no significant impact on turf quality. However, foliar magnesium applications led to a 10% improvement in turfgrass quality during the final 4 weeks in 2014 in J. That's also true. I think it was just one rating date in J. That might be a little off. Foliar applications, particularly of iron, were more effective in enhancing St. Augustine grass quality compared to granular iron. The study suggests that incorporating foliar iron into turfgrass nutrition programs can be beneficial, while the use of granular iron, manganese, and magnesium may not be warranted under similar conditions. Well, that's a pretty dang good summary. Thanks for asking me to do that, Joe, because I don't use that. I use another one called, actually, hang on a second. Let me do this. Let me go here. And let me go to, I think I have to type in a password. So hang on. Take that off the screen real quick. Let me see here. Yeah. Okay. So what I do for those listening, and this is actually quite useful. Well, what Joe just asked me to do was actually pretty dang good. So you might just go to ChatGPT and ask it to do that. But I'll go and I'll do stuff like that for that exact purpose, to summarize an article for me. And in some cases, I'm going to actually do something separate. I'm just for the members. Well, I'll just say it now. I was going to do it for the members, but I don't know how, but just do it for the members. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to generate podcasts of current articles, but do it in a way that is a little, not so much work for me. And so I'm working on that now, and I'm using this particular system, and it's called, where is it? That didn't come up. Hang on a second here. Oh, here we go. It's called Notebook LM. So on I can't get the whole thing on the screen. So on Notebook LM, I'm glad you mentioned this, Joe, and I'm sorry I got to go. I'm going on 2 hours now, so I got to shut this thing down. On Notebook LM, what you can do is on the left-hand side, you can input any source that you actually want the AI to use. So over here on, you can't see my cursor, but on the left-hand side, it says sources. And you would drag and drop the PDF of that article you want, Joe, into the left side. And then on the right side, you can ask it to summarize it, and it'll generate a really nice summary of just that one particular article. Or you can put in, say, 6 articles on nitrogen all together there, and you can say, write me what is the consensus of these 6 articles, or which nitrogen source should I use based upon the results of these 6 articles that you put in there specifically. So it's only going to pull the data from what you actually put in there. And I found Notebook LM to actually be more useful in that regard. But I'll be frank, that was a pretty dang good summary here on Notebook and on ChatGPT. This whole summary here was pretty good. So Notebook LM is probably going to be about as good, maybe a fraction better than ChatGPT on this particular issue. When you want to just this one, I want to look at just this one article. You can load just that one article in there and see what it says. But yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, Joe. That was a pretty good question. And Mike Conroy, for the last question of the night, says, is there any real benefit? Is there any benefit to stress blend fertilizers or turf grass? Well, we kind of already know the answer to that too. Unless, not on here. Unless you're deficient in potassium, there's probably not going to be any benefit at all. If anything, there's going to be harm. And it says stress blend fertilizers, typically high in potassium and sometimes including micronutrient. Again, ChatGPT's hung up on me. I don't know why it's so slow. But while it's thinking, I'll let you know, if you have enough potassium, applying more is not going to help. It's just that simple. If you don't have the headache, applying Tylenol is not going to help your headache that you don't have. So it just, this sort of ubiquitous approach to potassium usage, it's not going to harm anything. Yes, it can. If you have enough, you don't need to apply more. It's not going to help. It's only going to result in no effect at all or harm. It's not going to result in more strong grass or more stress-resistant grass. That's not going to happen. Now, if ChatGPT finally finished, it says, typically high in potassium and sometimes including micronutrients like iron, manganese, and magnesium or sulfur, and marketed to help turfgrass prepare for stress. However, scientific evidence does not support broad benefits of these blends unless specific nutrient deficiencies exist. Look at that. It's pretty good. Scenario, low soil potassium, improved drought traffic and cold tolerance. Now, it's not going to improve traffic tolerance and really not a whole lot of drought tolerance either. It could improve cold tolerance if winter kill is going to occur and you have low K. They could improve that. It's micronutrient deficiencies, and it says the possible enhanced color enzyme function. I want someone to show me anybody other than iron and manganese applied as a liquid and manganese applied as a granular. Show me any bona fide benefit to applying micronutrients, any bona fide turfgrass response to applying cobalt, boron, molybdenum, copper. Show me anything. I've never seen one. So you're not going to see any benefit, any micronutrient benefit other than from iron and manganese, except in the most bizarre, possibly intentionally produced situation. So forget the micronutrient deficiency benefit. Forget that. Unless it's a foliar applied iron or a foliar applied manganese or a granular applied manganese. It's not going to happen. Possible scenario benefits, sandy, low CEC soils may require more frequent potassium applications. Okay, I'll give you that. Sandy, low CEC soils might require more frequent potassium supplementation or application. That's true. Late season, cool season turf, moderate K can improve winter hardiness if soil K is marginal. Remember, if soil K is marginal or low. So if your soil K is 50 parts per million or above, applying more K is probably not going to help winter kill. If your soil potassium's less than 50, say 40, 30, 20, something lower like that, and winter kill is going to occur, then the application of potassium certainly reduces the risk of that. That is definitely true. Yeah. When stress blends offer no added value, soil K is already sufficient. That is the case in most situations. Micronutrients are not deficient. That is the case in most situations. Marketing-driven formulations, often not based on actual turfgrass needs or research-based thresholds. That's exactly true. These formulations are just made up in someone's head. Not to say they can't be useful, but if you're asking if it's useful specifically as a result of stress alleviation, then it's unlikely, very unlikely. And I would say, and they have scientific evidence summary here, and I would say that ChatGPT is pretty spot on. Here's the Gertall and Howe paper. Maybe I should have her come on and talk about that paper. Micronutrients and foliar stress blends did not improve turfgrass quality unless deficiency symptoms were present. It's really not complicated, guys. I know sales and marketing like to make it complicated, but it really is as simple as this. If you don't have a headache, how is Tylenol that you're going to take for a headache going to resolve your headache that you don't have? It's not any more complicated than that. If you have a headache, Tylenol might help. If you don't take Tylenol for a headache. And it's the same thing. If you have a bona fide boron deficiency, which I've never seen documented in the field, then maybe boron could help with that. But I've never once seen it documented ever. Rarely do you see potassium deficiencies. I've shown a leaf sample on the channel before. Just a couple months ago, I saw one down on a sod farm. It happens, but it's very rare. If you have it, that's the only way you're going to alleviate it, is to apply potassium or to allow the turfgrass to, maybe it's a seasonal issue, maybe the turfgrass would grow into it. Okay. But it's really not complicated. Don't let the sales and marketing and the smoke and mirrors dog and pony show fool you. It is really simple. If you don't have the problem, don't try to buy the solution to the problem. And if it's a nutrient problem, the solution solves it very quickly and usually not with a lot of the product at all. Okay? Shawnee says the charlatans will immediately be like, AI is not accurate. Oh, that's very true. If they said that, that would be one thing they would be accurate about. It's not, it is accurate when it's accurate, but the issue is it hallucinates a lot. It makes up things, and it does so in a very, very convincing way. You can go back and rewind this and watch it again. You'll see the 3 or 4 examples where it just hallucinated. They just made up something that doesn't exist, and it's just dead wrong. But it sounded really convincing. That's the concern, Shawnee. It really is. Okay. All right. I appreciate Chuck. Chuck says, thanks. Very interesting how the Q&A went tonight. I appreciate it. I'll be back on Monday. Oh, by the way, for the members, I fixed all the member stuff. You hopefully didn't see any problems with the membership levels and stuff. It was, but I opened up this week's show because I thought there might be a member that couldn't get access to it if they got kicked out on accident. So I opened it up, but everything's back to normal now. So next Monday's show will be members only again. If you want to watch that live, you'll need to be a member. It's on Monday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern time. All right, guys, there is a turf thought. It's new. Here it is. See you Monday. Have a good week. Bye. And now, Turf Thoughts by Ken Corley. A salesman came in one day and pitched a nanomicronized silica that reduces stress and increases nutrient use efficiency. I was skeptical, but I thought, why not try it? After 3 applications, the turf looked the same, but he said the benefits may not be visible for several months or even years. I thought, I think I may be better off if you were not visible for several months or even years.